Good morning, Sea Dragons. We're taking a look today at Phyllis Wheatley's poem, To the King's Most Excellent Majesty. She, in this poem, is addressing King George III, who ironically is best known as the king who lost the colonies. Notice that this poem was written in 1768, and so that predates the Declaration of Independence. So let's take a look. She says, "Your subjects hope, dread sire, the crown upon your brows may flourish long, and that your arm may in your God be strong. Oh, may your scepter numerous nations sway, and all with love and readiness obey. But how shall we the British king reward? Rule thou in peace, our Father and our Lord. Midst the remembrance of thy favors past, the meanest peasants most admire the last. May George, beloved by all nations round, live with heaven's choicest, constant blessings crowned. Great God, direct and guard him from on high, and from his head let every evil fly. And may each clime with equal gladness see, and monarch's smile can set his subjects free." All right, so we are going to move this to a Google Doc where I've copied and pasted the poem, and we're just going to break it down. Now, this first line is almost like Dear King George. And so if you look at the other lines, we see a rhyme scheme that's very similar to that of Anne Bradstreet's To My Dear and Loving Husband. We have a series of rhyming couplets, and so if we were to look at the scheme, it would be A, A, B, B, C, C, D, D, E, E, F, F, G, G. And without this first line, we have 14 lines, and so this is really in the form of a sonnet. And here, where she has this word but, this is called a volta, which the word but acts as a hinge word, indicating a shift or a turn in the poem. The word volta means turn, and so it's a word that we see used in association with sonnets. So, let's erase that and take a look at some other things. So just like To My Dear and Loving Husband, this particular poem is almost really in the form of a sonnet. So, again, she addresses King George here, and because she's addressing a person, this poem, in addition to being really a sonnet, has another name. It's called an apostrophe. See that word apostrophe right here. It looks like the word apostrophe. It's pronounced a little bit differently. And an apostrophe occurs when a writer or a speaker is addressing someone who is not present or is dead, or speaks to an inanimate object. So this poem and To My Dear and Loving Husband, they're both apostrophes. First poem, To My Dear and Loving Husband, Anne Bradstreet, of course, is talking to her husband. And in this one, Wheatley is talking to King George. And so she goes on to say, "Your subjects hope, dread sire." Now, the word dread doesn't mean the same thing that we think it means. So when we see the phrase dread sire, it really means greatly revered sir. Not that you're scary, but that we regard you with awe or greatly revere you. So moving on to this part here, she says, "The crown upon your brows may flourish long, and that your arm may in your God be strong." So we have some great figurative language here. When she uses the word crown, it is a special kind of metaphor called a metonymy, because she's using this representative object, a crown, to represent the king's rule, King George's rule. And then when she uses the word arm to also represent the king's rule, this is called a synecdoche. So what does she mean by these two lines? She asks that or hopes that his rule may flourish for a long time and that your arm may in your God be strong. So may your rule be influenced and supported by God. This is the time period in which we see the divine right of kings. And so the belief would be that King George would be blessed and supported and chosen by God. And then she goes on to use another metonymy. Oh, may your scepter numerous nations sway. So again, the scepter being a symbol of his rule. So may your rule sway or influence many nations, and may that scepter sway many nations with love that will obey you with love and readiness. And so here we have that little shift. So this part, we have her hoping that his rule will be long and successful. And in this section, this is what we're going to do for you. So, how shall we reward the British king? So, this is one of those inverted lines. We see inversion here. Poets usually use inversion so that they can create a rhyme. So, we see reward and lord. But the easiest way to understand an inverted line is to put it back in its order. And so, what does this line mean? How shall we reward the British king? How shall we reward the British king? Well, we'll hope that you will rule in peace. We have this nice little metaphor in which she is comparing King George to a father. As a king, he's a father figure. And she goes on to say, amidst the remembrance of thy favors past, the meanest peasants most admire the last. So again, this predates the Declaration of Independence, in which Thomas Jefferson and the founding fathers listed all the things that King George had done wrong. In this poem, she's asking that we remember all the things that King George did right. So may we remember all the good things, all the favors that you've done for us in the past. And even the most critical peasants can admire that. So, may George, beloved by all the nations round, live with heaven's choicest constant blessings crown. So, may you be beloved. You are a beloved king, according to Phyllis Wheatley. And may you be blessed. May God guard you from on high, and may God help any evil thoughts kind of fly from your mind. So may God protect you from evil, dark thoughts, which is an interesting line considering that King George is also known as Mad King George. He reportedly, historians think that he had a hereditary blood disorder that led to his so-called madness. And then she closes with this couplet, and may every clime or region or place with equal gladness see a monarch's smile can set his subjects free. So may we all see that your rule, that when you look favorably upon us, it sets us free. So if we look at this poem and compare it to Anne Bradstreet's poem, we see a lot of similarities. So we have a very similar rhyme scheme, that A, B, B, C, C, D, D, that kind of rhyming couplet rhyme scheme. We see a lot of figurative language, a lot of metaphor. We had a lot of hyperbole also in Anne Bradstreet's poem. We definitely have a lot of descriptive language. We have a lot of descriptive language in both. We have references to all the riches that the East doth hold and things like that, and to my dear and loving husband. And development of topics and themes. So both of these are poems of adoration and of respect. So in that regard, they have similar topics. Of course, To My Dear and Loving Husband, Anne Bradstreet is speaking to someone that she knows, and in the second poem, Phillis Wheatley is speaking to the King of England, and so obviously not someone that she knows. So the first poem is much more personal than the second poem, but both are, in fact, about having a lot of admiration and goodwill toward a person. We have a lot of discussion of hoping that these people will be in God's favor. So we see, again, the importance of religion in the early colonial and the pre Revolutionary War, kind of later colonial time periods.